Paul Newman revealed the Golden Age stars who were secretly gay. What if the dreamiest men of Hollywood's Golden Age weren't just acting on screen, but performing in real life too? Imagine the heartthrobs women swooned over, the clean-cut idols the studios protected like treasure, all living with a secret that could have destroyed everything they built. You're about to step into a Hollywood that never made the headlines, a place where charm was crafted, lies were law, and every studio had something to hide. These are the hidden stories of the leading men whose real lives were far more tangled, risky, and shocking than the films that made them legends. Are you ready to hear what Paul Newman finally revealed? 10. Rock Hudson. Rock Hudson sits at the top of every conversation about hidden sexuality in old Hollywood. In this story, he becomes one of the clearest examples of what Paul Newman reportedly knew but never said out loud. During the Golden Age, rock was shaped into the perfect symbol of straight, rugged masculinity. The studios wanted him to look like the dream husband every woman wished to, the safe hero men admired, and the kind of leading man whose smile alone sold tickets. But behind all that polish, he carried a truth that could have destroyed his entire career. He lived in a world where even a rumor could end everything. So he built a life of careful acting, both on and off the screen. People close to Hollywood circles often said that insiders already knew, and that actors like Paul Newman, who worked in the same era, understood exactly how dangerous honesty was at the time. Rock had friends, relationships, heartbreak, and secrets that never matched the roles written for him. Publicly, he was the romantic king of the 1950s and 1960s, but privately, he lived with fear, hiding the most real part of himself. His tragic passing later exposed the truth that the studios worked for decades to bury, turning him into one of the strongest reminders of how cruel that system was. Rock Hudson's story shows why so many stars kept quiet, and why someone like Paul Newman would have carried these truths silently. 9. Montgomery Clift. Montgomery Clift's name always rises in conversations about hidden lives, and in a story shaped around what Paul Newman reportedly knew, Monty stands out as one of the most heartbreaking figures. He was one of the first performers of his generation to bring method acting into Hollywood, turning every role into something painfully real. On screen, he looked sensitive, wounded, bold, and beautiful, but off-screen, he lived with secrets that became heavier as his fame grew. The studios demanded a straight image, even when insiders quietly understood that Monty's truth never fit inside that box. He had relationships that were hidden, romances that lived in shadows, and friendships that protected him from a world ready to destroy any actor who stepped out of line. Paul Newman admired Monty's talent, and people who knew both men said Newman respected Clift's quiet strength, even when the industry around them operated like a machine built to erase anything different. Monty struggled with self-doubt, emotional storms, and the pressure of living two lives at once. When his tragic accident happened, the pain inside him seemed to deepen, and the walls he had built grew even taller. Yet his acting never lost its fire. Films like A Place in the Sun and From Here to Eternity show a man pouring real emotion into every scene because he carried so much inside that he could not say. His story reflects exactly why so many Golden Age actors stayed silent, and exactly the kind of truth a man like Paul Newman might have witnessed but could not reveal. 8. James Dean. James Dean's presence in this story feels almost unavoidable because he represents the kind of mystery Paul Newman's era was filled with. Dean became a symbol of rebellion, coolness, and emotional depth. But long before fans turned him into an icon, Hollywood insiders already whispered about the parts of his life the studios worked hard to bury. His relationships, especially the ones that did not match the straight image designed for him, were managed carefully, hidden behind contracts, rumors, and carefully staged publicity moments. Dean lived fast, felt deeply, and moved through Hollywood like he knew his time would be short. Insiders often said he had relationships with both men and women, and that the studio system tightened its grip on him because they feared how the public might react. For Paul Newman, who briefly crossed paths with Dean early in his career, the memory of that complicated life would have become one more secret of the era that no one dared speak about. Dean carried a mix of confidence and vulnerability that made people fall in love with him, but it also made him more exposed to Hollywood's control. He had friendships that protected him, lovers who stayed hidden, and ambitions far bigger than the limitations placed on him. His untimely death froze him in time, preserving the mystery, the rumors, and the truth behind that calm stare and messy hair. James Dean's story shows the emotional cost of being different in a world that punished anyone who broke the mold, and it mirrors exactly the kind of reality Paul Newman would have known but never openly discussed. 7. Cary Grant. Cary Grant stands at the center of many old Hollywood secrets, and his life fits perfectly into a story shaped around what Paul Newman silently understood about their industry. To the world, Cary was the smooth, charming gentleman every woman adored and every man admired. He was confident, elegant, gifted, and always in control of the characters he played. But behind that calm smile lived rumors that followed him for decades, fueled by his close relationship with Randolph Scott and a private life that never quite matched the perfect image the studios crafted. Cary and Randolph shared a bachelor home for years, a place that became legendary among insiders. Although the studio forced them to stage relationships with women for the public, the friendship between the two men created whispers powerful enough to unsettle the entire publicity department. Paul Newman, working during the same era, would have been well aware of how these whispers traveled through Hollywood circles, especially when they involved someone as major as Cary Grant. Grant spent his life balancing public expectations and private choices. He married multiple times, often under intense pressure, yet none of those marriages erased the long-standing questions about his personal life. Biographers, friends, and old Hollywood insiders continued discussing his relationships long after his career ended, painting a picture far more complicated than the one the public ever saw. Cary Grant's story shows how carefully the Golden Age system forced actors to hide, reshape, and protect their truth, making him exactly the kind of figure Paul Newman could have known more about than the world ever realized. 6. Randolph Scott. Randolph Scott becomes an essential part of this narrative because his life cannot be separated from the secrets of Hollywood's past, the ones Paul Newman reportedly understood but never publicly exposed. Scott was tall, handsome, softly spoken, and always cast as the classic American cowboy. He represented strength, tradition, and the rugged charm audiences loved. Yet away from the cameras, Randolph's story was far more complicated, tied closely to Cary Grant in a way that still sparks discussion today. For years, Randolph and Cary shared a home that insiders called the most quietly watched house in all of Hollywood. Their photographs together showed a comfort and closeness unusual for the time, and the studios immediately feared how the public might interpret their bond. Publicists rushed to create female relationships for magazine covers while privately trying to separate the two men. Still, historians and respected biographers continued to uncover details suggesting their connection went far beyond simple friendship. Paul Newman, who lived in the same ecosystem of secrets, would have recognized the quiet pressure placed on men like Scott. Hollywood demanded a straight, heroic image, especially for actors who played cowboys. Nothing could threaten that illusion. So Randolph built a life protected by silence, much like many stars of his generation. He remained loyal, private, and careful until the end of his career, leaving behind a story filled with hidden chapters. His life reveals exactly how much the Golden Age forced its stars to hide, and why someone like Paul Newman would have carried those truths without ever speaking them aloud. 5. Anthony Perkins. Anthony Perkins brings a quieter, more emotional layer to the kind of secrets Paul Newman would have seen in old Hollywood. Perkins became famous for playing Norman Bates, a role that made him unforgettable. But long before that, he was already living under the heavy rules of a studio system that punished any actor who strayed from the image created for them. Anthony was shy, gentle, intelligent, and deeply sensitive, which made him stand out in a world filled with loud personalities and powerful men who controlled everything from a star's haircut to their private relationships. Before he married, Perkins had romantic connections with men, including his well-known relationship with Tab Hunter. The industry treated this as something dangerous, something that needed to be erased. Publicists created fake dates, staged photographs, and carefully built a straight image around him. The pressure to hide everything eventually pushed him into a lonely space where his emotions were locked away, even from the people closest to him. Insiders from that time often said that actors like Perkins lived in constant fear of being exposed, especially when their careers depended on roles that required them to appear clean, safe, and traditionally masculine. Paul Newman, who respected talent and understood the cruel rules of Hollywood, likely saw the quiet pain in actors like Perkins. Anthony carried secrets that shaped his choices, his performances, and even the way he walked through life. His story shows how the Golden Age took gifted men and forced them to hide the most real parts of themselves, leaving behind a legacy filled with beauty and sorrow. 4. Tab Hunter. Tab Hunter stands as one of the clearest examples of how dangerous honesty was in Golden Age Hollywood, and his life fits perfectly into the shadows that Paul Newman quietly understood. Tab was handsome, charming, and built to be a teen idol. Studios pushed him into the spotlight as the dream boy women were supposed to scream for. But behind that crafted image was a young man forced to hide every part of himself that did not match the Hollywood script. His private relationship with Anthony Perkins was one of the most carefully protected secrets of the time, handled like a ticking bomb by publicists terrified of scandal. The pressure on Tab was stronger than on most stars because his fame came directly from his looks and charm. His managers staged dates with actresses, wrote magazine stories that painted him as the perfect gentleman, and controlled every photograph released to the public. Meanwhile, reporters dug into his personal life, and gossip columnists circled him like vultures, waiting for any slip that could destroy his career overnight. Only later in life did Tab speak openly about who he really was, revealing the emotional strain of living under constant fear. He described the loneliness, the hiding, and the exhaustion of pretending to be someone created by a marketing team rather than his own truth. For someone like Paul Newman, who worked through the same era, Tab's struggle would have been another reminder of how Hollywood controlled its stars like chess pieces. Tabby. Hunter's story shows the human cost of fame during the Golden Age, where truth had to be buried to survive, even when it meant losing pieces of oneself along the way. 3. Raymond Burr. Raymond Burr's place in this story reflects the deep layers of secrecy surrounding the Golden Age, the very layers Paul Newman lived around but rarely spoke about. Known to millions as the strong, determined lawyer in Perry Mason, and later as the dedicated policeman in Ironside, Burr looked like the kind of man fans assumed had a traditional, simple life. But the real story hid behind studio-controlled interviews and carefully crafted biographies. What audiences never saw was the long-term relationship he shared with his male partner, a truth the industry worked hard to bury. Unlike many actors whose rumors circulated openly, Burr's personal life was covered up with remarkable intensity. Studio press agents created fictional stories about wives, tragic losses, and romances that never actually existed. There were articles claiming he had a son who passed away, or a wife who supposedly died young, neither of which was true. These stories were built simply to protect the straight image demanded of a leading man. Behind the scenes, Burr lived quietly with the man he loved, building a home far from the Hollywood spotlight. Friends and insiders later confirmed how devoted he was, how private he kept his relationship, and how fearful he remained that any exposure could end everything he worked for. To someone like Paul Newman, Burr's double life would have been a familiar pattern, another example of how many stars of the era survived by hiding in plain sight. Raymond Burr's story reveals how deeply the Golden Age shaped the lives of its actors, forcing even the kindest and most reserved performers to live behind walls of silence that lasted long after the cameras stopped rolling. 2. George Nader. George Nader represents the harsher side of Golden Age Hollywood, the part Paul Newman would have seen up close but never publicly discussed. Nader was handsome, talented, and rising quickly when the studio system decided to crush his future to protect another star. Unlike many closeted actors of his time, his secret was not just hidden, it was weaponized against him. Insiders knew that Nader was in a long-term relationship with Mark Miller, a relationship he had no interest in hiding from those he trusted. But Hollywood was not a place that allowed honesty, especially for actors expected to represent straight masculinity. The turning point came when scandal magazines began collecting files on gay actors, threatening to expose them unless they received payment or favors. One of the most damaging files reportedly included photographs of Nader, and instead of helping him, the studios chose to sacrifice his career to protect someone more valuable, Rock Hudson. Historians believe that Nader took the fall so Hudson could continue working, a decision that changed the direction of his life forever. Forced out of major Hollywood roles, Nader eventually moved to Europe, where he rebuilt his career with greater freedom. He remained with his partner for decades, proving that his personal life meant far more than the artificial image Hollywood expected him to live under. For someone like Paul Newman, Nader's story would have been a painful reminder of the cruelty baked into the industry, where careers could be destroyed simply for being truthful. George Nader's journey shows the human cost of survival in an era built on silence, fear, and sacrifices no one deserved to make. 1. Farley Granger. Farley Granger closes this countdown because his life captures every theme hidden beneath Golden Age Hollywood, the same truths Paul Newman quietly witnessed throughout his own career. Granger was young, magnetic, gentle, and incredibly talented. He starred in classics like Rope and Strangers on a Train, films that gave him a place among the best rising actors of his generation. But while audiences admired his charm, they never saw the private world he protected carefully, a world shaped by his bisexuality at a time when such honesty could destroy a man's future overnight. Granger grew up in an environment that allowed him to be more open in his personal life, especially among friends in theater circles. But once Hollywood pulled him into its system, the old rules hit him hard. Publicists began shaping his image, creating fake romances with actresses, and micromanaging his social life to protect the illusion of the perfect leading man. Instead of living freely, he learned how to move quietly, choosing moments of honesty only with people he trusted deeply. Farley eventually shared his truth in his memoir, explaining how he lived with relationships involving both men and women, long before society was ready to accept such openness. His reflections painted a picture of a man who refused to be ashamed, even when he had to hide parts of himself from the world. In the context of this story, he represents exactly the kind of person Paul Newman would have known about, yet protected by staying silent. Farley Granger's life stands as a reminder of how many stars carried hidden truths, surviving an era where authenticity was treated as a threat instead of a human right. In the end, these quiet confessions and buried truths show just how much pain, pressure, and fear live beneath Hollywood's golden glow. The men everyone adored weren't just battling studio bosses or bad scripts. They were fighting for the right to be themselves in a world that refused to let them breathe. And now that you've heard the secrets Paul Newman helped bring into the light, one thing becomes clear. The past was never as perfect as the pictures made it look. So here's the real question. How many more hidden stories are still waiting to be uncovered? If you want the next truth that Hollywood tried to bury, hit that like button, subscribe. Tell me which legend you want exposed next.